All right, welcome everyone. This is a Viper Professional Training and Support webinar. Today's date is Monday, May the 21st, 2018, and this is a Monday night's webinar, and the title of tonight's webinar is How to Avoid Being Faked into a Trade. And as everyone knows that's been to our webinars or our live trading room, everything that we say and do at Viper Trading Systems is for educational purposes only. Futures trading, Forex trading, any kind of financial instruments trading involves risk, therefore there's always risk of loss. You should only trade discretionary capital, and that is money that you can afford to lose. Nothing said in this webinar. Other webinars we might have, our live trading room or anything else with Viper Trading Systems should never be construed as trading or investment advice. And as always, everyone does trade at their own sole discretion. Any questions on the disclaimer? All right, if not, we're going to go ahead and get started. By the way, I'm going to start just real quick because we've got some people that are, going to be fairly new in here, obviously, today. And let me just real quick, bear with me a second, get up a little deal that I like to show. And I think it's very, very important for everybody to draw on your charts, okay? And I'm going to go through that first off. Bear with me one second. Okay. Now, you probably, if you've been to my webinars, you know that I'm just absolutely adamant about drawing on your charts. I believe that if you draw on your charts, you'll find it pretty hard to lose money. Okay. Because drawing on your charts is critical to you knowing what the trend is doing. You can have all the indicators in the world, but by the time you analyze them and everything, we're going to already be in a trade, be up with our first set of contracts nicely, and then, be going for our runner while somebody else is still analyzing their charts with lagging indicators. But price action is the key to trading. It really is. I mean, if you think about it, if you draw on your charts, you have to first determine if you are trending or chopping. And you basically do that with your horizontal lines and your trend lines. You must also know what the minor trend is. That's your lightning 1 and 2. Your minor trend is actually lightning 1. Your secondary trend is lightning 2. And then your medium trend and your longer term trend. You need to know those at all times. We have a tool with Viper Trading Systems called the Power Meter where you can know just that. Okay. You need to know what the trend is on the left side of the chart and the right side of the chart. Extremely important. And you need to know it in all 4 trends, okay, so that it's in the back of your mind. What direction do I really want to go on this trade, okay, and that's important, all right, and of course using your trend bands for continued trends. If you miss a thrust, you wait for a retrace, at least a minor one, okay, and anyway, this is on here so you can actually, pause it and look it over, okay. Now, real quick, before we get started with the rest of it, I'm going to go through lightning 1, 2, and 3 just real quick, since we've got new people in the room. Okay? It is extremely important to know what direction all 3 of these lightnings are going. Okay? You can trade against lightning 3, but just keep in mind that if you trade against lightning 3, then you're trading against the overall trend. And the reason I'm telling this tonight too is this is absolutely a good way not to get faked out. Because how many times has somebody put on a trade, it's gone a few ticks in their favor, maybe even 6 ticks in their favor, and then all of a sudden it's right back in your face. That's because, we're actually obviously going against the trend or going against the actual lightning 1 and 2 to give an example. Okay. Now, does anybody in the room tonight not know what I mean when I say identified lightning? Because I'll take 5 minutes and go through that if necessary. Because lightning is absolutely the key on your chart to making great trades. Okay. Davin says, I'm waiting for the light bulb to go on. When you have a thrust and a retrace, how do you know which level the price will react to? There are many support resistance levels that can be checked. Sometimes you go back quite a ways to get your level. And Kumar says, I don't really know what you're talking about on that. Okay, let's take just a couple of minutes and go over this. I'm going to do a little pencil just real quick. And we'll bring this down a little bit and change the color of it real quick. The white's fine. All right, what I'm talking about when I say identified lightning, and this is the most important thing you need to learn right here. This is where a lot of people's light bulbs clicked on. You know, when you know where the previous swing is, you know where to put your stop. Okay, to give an example, let's just start down here at the bottom. You can see my cursor, right? Same color as the cyan right here. All right, you have a thrust and you have a retrace. Now, you don't know this is your retrace right here, okay, until it takes out this swing. That's how easy identified lightning is. Because this swing could easily, you know, double top here and come on down, but as long as it doesn't take out the previous swing down here, then you're still heading up, right? On this particular example, that is. All right, so, you know, when was this particular swing identified? Well, it was identified when it took out this swing right across here with a close of a bar. This swing was identified when it took out this swing right here. Okay, and as long as you're stair stepping in a particular direction, you're trading with the trend. Okay, now I want to show you something from last night, and I want everybody to tell me, because this will avoid a lot of fake outs. Do you know which direction that you would turn on Object Trader just by looking at that chart right there? Anybody? Because to give an example, okay, on CL, I basically see down here, you know, let's just draw it from even up here. That's fine. All right. Or even over here. Okay. Now, that's an uptrend, isn't it? Exactly. John jumped right on it. So why would you, for instance, you know, use a short tactic at the open on Sunday if it's trending up at the close of Friday? Okay. This is where those light bulbs will click on, by the way, if you really learn to see this. All right, let's do this one. Let's see. What is the overall direction of this particular trend? Okay. Now, obviously, it's way up right now, right? Okay. Now, let me back this up just a moment because I want to show you real quick what you can look for on Sunday. Anybody trade Sunday, by the way? Anybody trade Sunday night? Keith, what would you like for me to review? Because I'll be more than happy to. Absolutely. Okay, bear with me just a second. Oh, why it's long? Okay, just the open? Absolutely. I'm going to go over that real quick and I'll show you. Because I actually took this trade last night. Okay, and I did it based on exactly the way I teach things. My wife actually was quite pleased with the outcome of it. Okay, let me go ahead and go to the chart real quick. Now, what I'm going to show you here is, first off, we have to do this in market replay, obviously, because there's no way, you know, to, well, like right now, to give an example, there's not enough movement, anything going on. But on 520 at 4:53 in the evening, okay, all you really have to do is, first off, you got to know which direction you're going to go with it. Okay, you got to know which direction you're going to go with your particular trade. It's extremely important. Now, YM was pretty much sideways, but let me ask you a quick question. Are those still higher lows right there? And the answer is yes, right? So even though this was pretty sloppy, you know, you had highs up here and highs down here even, you basically had kind of a wedge, but you did have higher lows setting up across here, and you pretty much had a line of support right across here. Okay? So what I simply did last night is set up Object Trader, and let's go ahead and get this out of the way. Everybody knows how we saw the longs on there, right? It's extremely important to see it. Okay, let's go to the actual chart. Now, this is before the market opened yesterday. Oil, okay, a little oil, and you just simply go to your strategy, which I've got on the chart right now. Okay. What I did yesterday is simply turned on bar close. I set bar close. I turned it to long, and I set it for 2 contracts. Then on this one over here, and it took me a minute even, with looking at this, but when I looked at my webinar chart, I go, I see it easier even, because this sometimes gets a little bit, daunting to see all the junk. You see what I mean? But if you look at these lows, they are actually getting higher. Okay. So what I did is then started my trader again and set it on bar close and did it with 3. Okay. Now what I normally do is turn off like a break-even trigger, and if I'm only going to do 3, I'm going to set one of those targets at like even say 50 to give an example, because when they go out of these things, sometimes they move like a house of fire. Okay. And I would probably put a little looser stop on it, simply because you're getting in at a market open. Okay. But the whole idea of this is to see, how do you avoid getting faked out? Why did I go ahead and do longs on these charts rather than saying, you know what, this could go either direction? Well, what if I went short and then it jumps up and all of a sudden I've got a 20 tick stop that gets hit because I went short? Yeah, the whole thing is, but there's higher lows. Exactly right. There's higher lows. And when this closed on Friday, this is what you saw. You basically saw a little bit lower highs and you saw a little bit higher lows. You were in a wedge, weren't you? And when this happens like this, the tighter this wedge gets, the better it is for the breakout. Okay. Now, notice that your mid band was kind of a rose color. That simply means that it's sideways as it can be. Okay. So as a trader, I just had to make up my mind, say, okay, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go a bar close. Now, keep in mind, if you use Object Trader on a Sunday night, you have to make sure that this auto disable at session is turned off. Okay. It has to be false, because otherwise you're going to be disappointed when the thing doesn't go ahead and fire because the session starts and it disables it. Okay. You don't want it to do that. All right, let's see where we're at. We're about 4 minutes out right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what actually happened on here. Now this one with only 2 contracts, you'd want to set your runner a little higher. Okay, something like that. And I would probably go ahead and leave the 15 stop on 2 contracts on oil, because that's $300 still. Okay, so let's go ahead and just watch it. I'll fast forward it just a little bit so we can get to about 459. Let it go ahead and do its thing. All right. Now notice how quickly YM just shot right up to those targets. Okay. Now look at oil. It's pretty much just meandering around. You're down about $100 on it. Okay. Now notice though that this still got in the trade because it got in on that bar right there. Now if anybody was watching oil yesterday, it pretty much did the same thing. It just shot right out of here in just a couple of minutes or so. Okay. So that's what you're kind of looking at. All right. If you trade on Sunday night, for instance, that's not too shabby, is it? When you think about it, that's not too shabby at all, especially when it happened in less than just a few seconds. Could the same thing happen to the downside? Absolutely, Davin, it could. But keep in mind, though, that what this whole webinar is about is how to not be faked into a trade. Okay? Because we diagnosed our chart right off the bat. We knew that we were looking for the long simply because they were actually doing higher lows and higher. They were doing those higher lows along that bottom. Remember? Let me go ahead and get down here to it. It's kind of hard to see, isn't it? But that's where it was right there. See those higher lows right through there? Now that's pretty much telling you that you're looking for a long. You're not looking for a short, right? Everybody sees that. Okay. Now, I talked to some people today that said, they caught a lot of this, but if you noticed what happened with YM was shortly after this, you had another run. I'm going to go ahead and just tag that because it just took out that top. Now, I would have tagged it down here instead, obviously, because that's where you really wanted it, was down at mid-band, but I was yakking. I did get this last night, by the way, because it's exactly the way we teach it. So I grabbed it a little bit late here. Let's just see what it does. All right, look at our oil over here. We could even move this out of the way even if we wanted to. Look to the left to trade the right. It'd probably at least get to here. And let's look to the left to trade the right. Might even get to here. That's pretty accurate right there, I would think. And then just let it do its thing. Okay? Now, if you think about this, this is exactly the way we trade each and every day in that room. Now, here in a few minutes, we're going to go to the actual trades that set up, during the morning that I actually called, and I'm going to show you how not to get faked into those also. Okay? Because look at that thing. It just went like a house of fire. Okay? That was just not a bad trade, was it? Now, let me ask you a quick question. A lot of people don't look at their charts ahead of time and see, where could this chart change directions if it decided to change directions? And by the way, YM did change directions last night while I was actually doing online church. Okay? Does anybody see where it's at? Anybody see where it's at all on YM? Because where it's at on YM is basically at this particular moment is right here. Okay? But if this continues going up, you're going to watch for it to be at a different spot. Now, let me show you how to tell when this thing actually even decides to go the other direction. See what's happening here so far? Now, would you get out of this trade pretty soon if it starts taking out like, for instance, like a phantom or something like that? Well, yeah, obviously you'd want out of that trade, right? Okay. Now, this does have what we call a phantom trade that it hadn't taken yet. See, that's right off that little predictor right there. Okay. And I just went ahead and tagged it just to get into it. All right. But if you were trading this using your real money and everything, you realize that you don't even have to take any more trades than these two that just set up a minute ago, because they set up pretty nicely, didn't they? So as traders, we're going to always check our charts to make sure what the direction of the overall trend is, right? Okay. It's extremely important to do so. Always also, when they've made a good run, don't let them just go tagging you for a bunch of money. Like, see, I've got 3 contracts on right there. This is going to come down to at least right here. See it right there? Or the predictor, which looks like I'm still okay. All right. But where would you think that if this thing decides to break down, where it probably will break down? When you see the phantom type trade, to give an example, if it doesn't immediately go up and take out the previous swing over here to the left, you're going to get a lower high, and then you're going to take out the low. Okay, watch what actually happened. I was watching this. I didn't trade this part last night because it was actually church time. See this lower high right here? I'd go ahead and protect that coin, by the way, on that particular trade. See there? But if you were trading this with your real money, okay, does anybody see where you could get in this trade if it decides to go short? Okay, because what you're looking at always on these charts is, first off, you got to stay with the overall trend. Okay, now the overall trend right now is this right here: thrust, retrace, right? Now we haven't taken out the high, which makes you kind of nervous that they're not going to. So if they actually do this, then you're actually looking at a lightning to the downside, right? So where would your trade be on this chart if that happens? Anybody? Because we teach this trade, and believe me, it works. Because I see it already. I see if it breaks this right here, that it's going to come back and kiss it. Would that be a legitimate short trade if it does? And the answer is yes. Okay, because you're looking for a 1, 2, 3 type of a reversal. Okay, and when you see this, to give an example, uh, you know, this thing went like crazy, but you notice you didn't even get filled because this was evidently not where the pricing was. Now on oil, it did happen to be. Remember, it actually filled the trade on a bar close because oil's not quite as fast as YM is. Okay, but if you see this type of movement like this, don't you think that there's probably going to be either consolidation or a good retrace? And when you see them thrust, retrace, and even thrust again, to give an example, that's a good time to start looking for very, very possible trend changes. Okay, because when you're actually looking at a 1, 2, 3 type reversal, this is what you're looking at on lightning. Let me just draw this. If you were heading up with lightning, just like we showed on that other chart, you're basically getting higher lows and higher highs, right? You know that's your higher low right here because it took out this swing, right? Isn't it the same thing here if this takes this swing out? In other words, a down lightning would be like this, and then like this, where it actually breaks support. But you don't just take the break of support simply because this can be your fake. When we're talking about staying out of fake trades, that's why we are retrace traders. I would take this trade only if it thrust down, retrace, thrust, and then did what? Everybody see that? That's your rollover. Okay. Now, if you were trading YM last night, you probably saw this in real time. And if you hung on to your long trade for very much longer than, for instance, if you got in when it first opened, that's fine. You had a trade. You had another one set up right in through here. Nice trade. Okay. But you definitely took it out when it took out this little swing area. This one came up, came down, came up, came down, still stayed just around mid-band, so you were still okay on it, plus your swing was right over here. See it? Judging by lightning, high, low, higher, high. That's your lightning swing. Okay? As long as it didn't take that out, then you're still going up. Okay? Now, if this does take this out right here, we're no longer heading up. Okay? It hadn't done it yet, and that's fine. Okay? Let's speed it up and see what it did and see if this doesn't do exactly what I said, because I saw this happen last night. Okay, see, it's right at support. Now, if you're one of those that actually just sells support, you're going to end up a lot of times where it just fakes you and then jumps right back at you. Okay, but if you actually wait for it to break and then come back and kiss, you're going to usually get a pretty good trade. Okay, and you can just simply wait for that. Let me show you how this actually sets up. We've got the tools to do it too. All right, notice that you have red background, it just kissed predictor. Okay, now the trade was right there, so I'm going to go ahead and short it because it came perfectly back into where I said it would. See how that does that? That's why, to me, it is so important to trade 4-range charts, because you can see every single lightning swing. Thrust and retrace, that is the key to trading. Anybody that tells you any different is putting 20 and 30 tick stops on their trades. And then they're going, I don't understand why I can't ever, get the averages where I can make decent money because I'm giving it up on this stupid trade I put a 30 tick stop on. And you don't want to do that, because this trade right here, to give an example, I would put my stop just above that swing. And since mid-band's right there, I'd probably put it right at mid-band. Okay? And then you just ride the trade accordingly. And that's exactly how you trade every single trade that you take on these charts. You diagnose your charts. How did you make your mid-band wider? My mid-band's the same as yours, Robert. They're the same size. I don't think you have control over the size of the mid-band. Let me check. I don't think so. That's your power trend or your VIP dynamic trend, and you don't. Okay. Now we've got a band in here that you do have control over if you want to use it. I don't know if I've got time to really go over it. I may show it like in the room tomorrow. But we've got another band in here called Object Trader Guidance Lines. And on this particular one, you can actually choose about anything on it that you want and change the size of it. Okay. So you could make that a lot wider if you wanted to. Okay, let's see how this trade worked out. Just real quick. Anybody trade this particular one? And by the way, boxing that in is a killer way to do that trade. Okay. Absolutely. The best way to do that is box it in right around that mid band and take the trade. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and we're going to fast forward to where I actually called an oil trade this morning. And I want everybody that doesn't know how it was called to try to really ponder the chart and see why it was called there, because it was a beautiful trade and they're not accidental. Okay, is guidance line the one in the middle? Well, guidance line, let me just show you real quick. It won't take a second. Let me just get a regular chart up. We'll get a, that's YM. Yeah, YM's fine. All right, I won't put any indicators on it at all. Bear with me just 1 second. Get rid of this real quick. All right. I did some testing earlier too. All right, so this is your YM chart right here, okay? Now, if you use like that guidance lines, what you can actually do is go to guidance lines right here. All right, and this is real similar to that dynamic trend, except it's actually even a little bit more sophisticated because you can actually control, you know, how the thing draws and everything, and you just really want to play around with it to see how you like it. Okay, now if you look at the normal mid band that's on the charts, we're looking at about a 5.2. Okay, I like to have basically my period set at around 55. That's usually quite good. And this particular one that we designed here, you can do static or even active. And sometime I'll just do a webinar and go over quite a bit of this. Okay, but this particular one here even has backgrounds and things, you know, where you can actually set a background on it. And I'll go ahead and apply it to the chart just so you can see it. See, basically, that's it right there. Okay, and you'll notice that this went to the red. So you're looking, we didn't put the predictor on here, but you notice the predictor was right where I took that trade, which was a good area. But you can actually even control the size of this and everything if you want to. Okay, just by going down here. That's your guidance line in the middle. Width of it's 8. You could change it to a 12 if you wanted to. You know, it'd be a real thick line then, see? You can do anything you want with it. Okay, give me just a second, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and get that other one going here. I'm going to go ahead and kill this one trade, and let's go to where that oil trade was called this morning. So I'm going to actually kill the chart and go ahead and go forward because I want to show you a little trick that you can do if you would like with your time trader. Okay, and always remember, again, you want to trade with the particular trend. Okay, bear with this just a second and we'll get this going just a second. I don't like changing charts in the middle of a webinar. That's not smart usually. So bear with me just 1 second. Almost there. Let's see. So for 24,931 line, it doesn't make any difference if pivot high or low. The low pivot point, yellow dot if broken, would indicate the low had been broken. Well, Davin, on your question, yeah, if you actually look at those, the a priori swings, which is actually your lightning 3, you'll find that your a priori type numbers, when they're broken, just to give you an example, like even on this chart right here, notice when this a priori is broken right here, we're still not quite on our chart just yet. Just one sec. It's still loading. There we go. All right. You'll notice that you have this a priori right through here with the numbers. And notice when it was broken that it was actually breaking down. See there? That's your lightning 3. Okay. Now, does anybody remember this in the room this morning? Because this trade was actually called live. All right. And I had this drawn on the chart even, because I like to draw on my charts. And I was thinking, you know what? They're breaking a trend line. So let me ask you a quick question. At the open of the market, you want to be concerned about what is the overall direction. Okay. Well, the overall direction had been down, but look to the left to trade the right and notice that you had a low over here. And see that low and high and higher low? This is your power meter 4. Okay. So what you can actually do at the open of the market, by the way, is utilize the tool that we give you here. And let me show you how to do this. You go to strategy. We'll go ahead and take Object Trader off and put it back on. All right. And then you go up to your zones, and these zones are set up for Time Trader. Now, Time Trader, simply you set the date, okay, and you got to tell it a time you want it to draw the box. Well, we like to draw our box at 7:59 Central Time. Now, I'm Central Time, so you would have to set yours accordingly. All right. Once you do that, then this is going to be a 5-tick box from the middle and 5 tick above. So it's a 10-tick box. Okay. If you want it to be smaller than that, then you just simply set it for like 4, and that'll be an 8-tick box. Okay. If you wanted it a 6-tick box, you'd set it for 3. Now you got to be careful doing that because that's not really much of a box. Okay. Usually I like at least the 4 because you're basically talking about 2 bars on a 4-range chart. Okay, so if you set this like this, this is your time trade mode right here on May the 21st, 7:59 in the morning is when it'll go off. So you just simply then go down, set your to true, and of course put your count on naturally. This is in replay because we're doing a webinar teaching. Okay, so we're going to leave it in replay mode. And then you simply go to your object type and change that to Time Trader. All right. And you could actually do it either direction as far as that goes. Okay. And then just let the Time Trader do its thing. Okay. Now, this particular trade was called this morning in the room based on Time Trader. Now, let's go ahead and watch this. I'll go ahead and fast forward this just a little bit so we can get there. 7:47. Let's go a little faster. 7:52. Don't want to get to 7:59 just yet. 53. And I'll stop it right when it gets to 58 and 30 seconds because I want you to see how it draws. Good enough. 58.38. Okay. Now, what Time Trader will do is at 7:59, it starts thinking about drawing a box, but it has to wait for the bar to close. Okay. So what you're going to do if you utilize Time Trader like this is you simply let it draw the box. See, it's 7:59 right now. The normal indicator box is drawing. Now, my Time Trade box has not drawn yet. Okay, this is simply the indicator that we use in the room. Okay, when this bar closes, though, you're going to get a green box that's 8 ticks wide, and it'll have a top and a bottom. You'll be able to manipulate it if you want to, real quickly before it fires a trade. Now watch, if this closes, this will turn green with a big box. See, notice how it doesn't actually start drawing it until the bar actually closes, though. Okay, that's because a strategy has to wait for a bar close. Okay, let's see if we can get a bar close. It did, because this morning we traded this. Oh, and anybody have any questions too, just type them right in. There you go. There's your box right there. Okay. Now, if you're gutsy, and you want to take a chance with like 3 and, put, like, let's say, for instance, you want to just go for runners, all day or something like that, you certainly can. Let me get rid of that. Like that. Okay. And then you just simply wait for it to either close the box, or you could even touch the box if you wanted to. Like I could do a touch plus. Well, matter of fact, it already touched it. Okay. So I'm in the trade. Okay. Now, if you didn't like that particular one instead, let me show you. You can actually manipulate this box. Even though it's a time box, I can set this like this even, and it has to break that swing if I want to. Okay, now notice that I jumped in real quick and I took it right off. That's not because the trade didn't work out. I'm showing you several ways to trade this. Okay, and we'll go ahead and put it on short also. Now you'll notice when it gets in a trade that this will turn the other one off. Okay, let's go ahead and let this thing do its thing. A lot of people will tell me, gosh, sometimes you just can't get in a trade because it's so fast and everything. Well, 2 full minutes has gone by just then. Now notice how they do when you do breakouts. Okay, now you're down like $300 with 3 contracts. Everybody see that? But you got to put your stop underneath the swing. And now we're only down 180. Everybody see that? And you'll notice that Object Trader automatically puts our targets and everything. And usually what I do is move one totally out of the way, look to the left to trade the right, and I'll look for this later, like so. And I'll also look for the previous swing where it broke down. Like even right across here is fine, like a phantom, something like that. And then you just let the trade do its thing. We called this trade in the room this morning. Okay? And as you can see, it's in the money now. Okay? Now, let me ask a quick question though. For anybody that didn't get this trade, where will the trade set up again? Anybody? Because you're going to see it here in just a second. I'll show it to you. See how that popped up above the line right there? Okay? If you weren't even in this trade at all, don't you think it'll probably come right down on top of this little swing right here, like so, and more than likely give you a shot? Okay? And if you don't get all the way down to your line, let's say that you weren't even in this trade at all. Okay? Let's see if it'll go ahead and go down just a little bit further. If it doesn't, we're going to take the trade anyway. Hopefully it doesn't just break like crazy. But I'd like for it to come back and kiss right on top of mid-band, if at all possible. And I'd be ready for that trade. That's probably good enough. I don't think it's going to kiss it. Okay? See that? Where it kind of comes down to mid-band, kind of pops up. All right? Now, got to always look to the left to trade the right. One of the most important things you'll ever learn in trading. Okay? Because if you draw your lightning on your charts, let me go ahead and draw, see if we can get lightning 2 here. All right, so let's see. Let's just fast forward this just a little bit, because I want anybody that's watching this to tell me where the next trade is. Anybody? There's 2 places it's going to be. Okay, if you're, for instance, you're not in the trade at all, you could obviously look for this little trade right here. Okay, see the top of that swing? Okay, let's just pretend you weren't even in the trade at all, okay? Let's see if we can get that one. It may have already done it because it's tried to come down, but let's see if it'll just wick it. You're going to see this time and time again when you're trading, by the way. And by the way, we've got a tool for that. How about this? Long inside, touch plus, let's do 3, and let's see if we can get a trade right on top of that swing. Came within 3 ticks, and it fired. Okay? Now, notice that it's probably going to kiss my line to begin with, but if you're going to try to get in trades, you're almost going to have to at least go touch plus. The reason for that is because you're going to miss too many of them if you don't. You know, there's so many trades that will try to set up within 2 ticks of a previous swing, that type of thing. Let's see, just one sec. Some questions coming in. What determined where to put the box besides the time setting you placed and the lightning break? Well, JP, on your question, we've been doing this for a number of years now, and we have found that when the market actually opens up on oil, that you get some really, really nice trades. You can even trade what's called stealth if you want to. I don't have stealth on this chart, do I? I'll get it on there and I'll show it to you. I'll show you stealth on here where you could actually trade it too. We used to actually just do a trade period based on stealth when the room opened, because that's when you find that momentum, that kick in when the market first opens, and you'll usually get a pretty decent trade. And by the way, if you actually traded oil today, you probably saw it do wonders, because we called several good trades in here. Now, if this breaks, this swing right here, where do you think it's going to go? Anybody? Draw your lines on your chart, and I'll just about bet you that it goes right down there. Like a mid-band trade, absolutely. It's going to be a mid-band trade or on top of this swing where it broke up. So we'll draw 2 lines. I'll draw one here, and I'll draw one here, right at mid-band. Actually, I'll draw one right there where that swing is. Okay, let's just say we're not in it at all. Let's see if we can get a trade. Let's do a region. Bring it down. Do a touch plus, say, 3. All right. Now, you could also take the little breakout because I've got a swing identifying right there too. So let's see which trade sets up. We're either going to get a breakout or we're going to come down to mid-band. Does anybody remember this little trade that we called in the room right there? Anybody remember drawing on the chart in the room? This is the exact trade that I drew in the room this morning for people that didn't catch the first one that I called, but I said exactly where it was going to bounce. And somebody might say, how in the world do you know exactly where it's going to bounce? Look to the left to trade the right. Okay? If you look to the left to trade the right and you look at this little lightning deal here, let me get rid of this one and we'll go for the other one. Let's see where it's at. I might have closed it. Let me get it again. Get this out of the way. Okay? If you'll look to the left to trade the right, you're going to constantly see where these trades, you can put your stop. Okay? You can back your stop up to the second, what we call the secondary swing. That's usually lightning 2. See where that's pretty much right across there where I use this lightning right here. Okay? And you can naturally put your stop accordingly. So when you're trading on your charts, just obviously be ready to have your stop set with the swing. With the swing. This is a secondary swing. You're given a little bit of wiggle room. Maybe the trade's going to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this. You see what I mean? But you don't let it come to here. Okay? Because they constantly stair step up. Now, if you're more of an aggressive trader, you're going to actually put your stop nice and like even in here to give an example, and you may get stopped out. Okay? Because you're doing more like, getting the really quick moves, that little 4-range bar that's just kind of doing this little lightning dance. So you're getting out pretty early. The guy with the mid band's getting out more into this area. You'll see on your charts that's pretty accurate. You're basically 48 ticks from bottom of the bottom phantom to the top of the top phantom. Okay. Now, let's see if everybody can figure out the very next trade. Pretend you didn't get a trade at all, because the next trade I also called in the room. Okay. Yeah, we don't even have to leave this on as far as that goes, but let's leave it on for a minute. We'll just go ahead and move our stop. By the way, you've got great stops in here also. You don't have to let these trades come all the way back against you. You can use, for instance, like line 6 to get out of a trade. You can use the mid band to get out of a trade. All right. And you can even utilize lightning. Here's your lightning stop. You just hit your space bar so you can see it, and you'll see that lightning's right there, and lightning 1 is right under there. Okay, so I could actually just simply do trail enabled right there. And then if it gets taken out, it gets taken out. Okay, let's see what happens. If it gets taken out, it gets taken out, right? Still good. Now watch lightning. If this happens to head up a little bit, lightning will follow it. This little trail stop that I'm doing right now will actually follow this trade, or it'll stop me out, one or the other. Let me get rid of that region so you can see things better. Okay, it looks like it's going to stop us. It stopped us. Okay, now, where's the next trade on this chart? Let me get rid of these lines right here, because we drew this in the room this morning. Where is identified lightning on this chart? Secondary. You have a low, it took out the high, so that's your established swing. This is your established swing because it took out the high here. So this is micro swing, this is secondary swing. Okay? This swing will hold in a pullback, or you're going to go deeper. Okay? Now watch what actually happens on a deal like that. Let's just let it do its thing for a minute. Here we go. Now watch this swing right here hold when it retraces. Anybody see that? Why did we have our lines drawn on our chart in the room like that? So guess what? Remember this trade in the room this morning? We just simply turned on little region, and we took a trade. You could actually take the bottom of it if you wanted to, like a touch plus 2, or you could even take it as it breaks out. See, that took it from the bottom right there because I'm looking right at my line. Okay, that's an aggressive trade. Okay, you'd put your stop nice and tight just in case, though. I wouldn't let them come down like even to line 2. So that way you're not taking a chance with more than about 8 ticks. Why did it stop on 71.57? Because of that swing. See, anytime they break micro, they'll go down and check these secondary swings. And see, to the left here, you had at the time, you had your micro and you had your secondary. Okay? And this is also, by the time these bars set up, this is also your a priori swing, which is your lightning 3. And your lightning 3 is pretty powerful. Let me show it to you on the webinar chart. Just one sec. That's CL. Let's just look at it on here. See there? That's why. See that little swing right there? Your lightning 3 is extremely important, because right now, just look to the left to trade the right, and you'll see, for instance, that you've got a nice little uptrend going, right? You've got highs and lows that are higher, and you've got a high that's higher. I could draw this with lightning too, by the way. It's automatic also. But what you're looking at when you're drawing on your charts is these a priori swings. And they'll make a big difference for you. Could you draw lightning 3 on the chart? Absolutely. Let me show you how to do it. Lightning 3, the way you do lightning 3, you just simply hold down your control key, left click your mouse, and draw. And usually it needs to draw from a top one for some reason. And if it doesn't draw right, just do it again. And that's actually your lightning 3 right there, because this is actually lightning 4 right here. Okay, so this is actually your swing. You have a high, you have a low, you have a higher high. So if you draw your lines on your chart, you knew that it cannot take this out and continue heading up. Okay? So when you're drawing on your chart and you see these lightning swings, you can pretty much take that to the bank until it takes this swing out. This is not heading down. If this was to take out this swing right here with a little thrust and a retrace and kiss it, and even go above it a little bit or whatever, but so that it at least kisses it and then rolls over, that could be a really good short. Okay? But until it does that, it's not trending down, right? It's trending up. Okay? Did anybody trade this today at all after this call that I made? Let me just show you something on here. We'll just fast forward this. I'll go to 500 times. Anybody remember that trade? Now, judging by what I just taught you, where's the next trade on this chart? Anybody? Because I'm going to show you where it is, and it's not because, as a matter of fact, we had already closed the room by now, but let's just kill it. Does anybody see the next trade on the chart? Just what I taught just a minute ago. There you go. John got it. All right, looky here. How many want to bet that more than likely that comes down to that line? Let's just see if it does. It may go up higher first, obviously. Look at that. Now, if you saw that happen in real time, couldn't you be in the trade? Now, I would have gotten in right at the line, by the way, or on the bar close. Okay? But we just did this just now simply because it hit the line, and, as long as you're getting lightning 3 and it's going higher and higher, let's go ahead and take some profit there. Then that's the way you want to trade it. How many of you traded oil into the close, by the way? Some of you? All of you? Now keep in mind one thing. I want to show you something that you got to learn also. These swings are really good if they thrust up above them quite a bit. Okay? Like 87 to 10, to give an example, that's 20 some odd ticks, right? But if they barely take them out, then you're not looking for this swing to get in. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure this is going to do it because I've seen this 1,000 times. Okay, so far right there, we are taking out the swing. Everybody see it right there? All right, we've got a lightning swing right under here. That's identified, right? Okay, we've got a high, a low, a higher low. Not a higher high yet, but this is our identified, what we call our secondary swing, right? All right, let's see. Fast forward a little bit. Okay, there's your swing right across there. And you've got another swing right across here. So this is the way I would draw this in the room if I was trading this. This is your sweet spot. 7187 calculation from JP. On your question, what we do is we actually have 4 power meters on our chart. Power meter 3 is based on a 4-range bar with a 15 swing strength. It's got algorithms built into it also, though, so that it looks at price action, how the bars are drawing, different things like that. Okay, so when it draws these, just to give you an example, if I was walking into the room right now, I'd say, okay, if it breaks here, I know that I'm looking for more than likely anyway, a short, right? If it breaks that. All right, so I diagnose my charts each time. Now, so far, You've got a swing right across here that you're identified high, low, basically same high, high, low, higher high. That's your identified swing. Okay, see that one right there where I've got the line drawn? So if you were not in this trade, wouldn't you think this would be a good area, more than likely to get this trade? And the answer is yes. And keep in mind also that when they get around this mid band, this is like a little magnet to them. You know, they thrust above, then they pull back to midband. They thrust above, they pull back to midband. Now, when they go deeper, like a phantom type trade, or even under midband like this is when you box them in. Now, if you're a gutsy trader, I see the trade right at this line. Okay, that's, you know, the aggressive trader that will simply go, he's not going to go 3 contracts. Even aggressive, you got to be, you know, smarter than, you know, just aggressive. You don't want to just jump in with multiple contracts, because you could be catching a falling knife. Yeah, this is actually a high, a low, same high, higher low, higher high. So that's my micro swing, that's my secondary swing. Okay. So I'm looking at this not to be broken if this is going to head up. Okay. Notice looking to the left to trade the right. Now look at this right here. Thrust, retrace, thrust. Where did this come back to? Everybody see it right there? So this has already been checked. See there? They don't need to check this one again. That would be checking micro, secondary, third. Okay? Now watch and see if it doesn't bounce as it gets to that secondary swing. And could you be ready to take it? Well, it already did it. There's one. Could you be ready to box it in also? Sure. Or lightning. You can use the lightning indicator. You know, I could add, you know, for instance, a couple if that goes green. And it'll go green, by the way, if it takes out that swing. Watch and see if that doesn't go green if that closes above that swing. Touched it. Hadn't closed yet. Now, a conservative trader, the way they do is basically you don't want to really box in like a big area, because you've already missed 12 ticks of that trade. When we talk about boxing in, we like to actually box in like right here. Let me get rid of lightning and I'll show you. Notice that you have bar down, bar down, bar down, bar up. Okay. If you move this box out of the way, you're going to notice that your swing is right across here. So couldn't you get in on that bar right there? And the answer is yes. Now, if you're gutsy, you get in on the bar close to the upside off of midband, but they'll fake you on that a lot of times. Okay. Now notice my PM hadn't changed yet, so it's evidently right across here, and that's going to be late to me, but if this turns green, it's going to add 2 contracts. Watch and see if it turns green. See there, just turned green and it added 2 contracts. We developed this thing pretty nicely, okay? Because if you traded oil into the close, by the way, there was actually even another trade that set up just like this. And we're almost out of time, but I'm going to ask you, everyone, where the next trade is, and I'm going to go into about 500 times mode to see if you can figure it out. And I'll slow down when I start seeing it. Okay, it ratcheted up above the previous swing. Everybody see that? Now, it's not ratcheted up enough for me yet, okay? Because this is a shallow retracement. I would not get in on this trade right here. Then you look at this swing right across here. I'd be looking for the trade down in this area if I wasn't already in it. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's see what happens. I'll fast forward it. Now that ratcheted up. Everybody see that? So where's your next trade? Anybody? Absolutely. You nailed it. Did it work? Well, let me ask you a question. Has it worked practically every single time? And the answer to that is yes, right? Let's just go ahead and kill this. Now, what if you said, you know what? I'm not a chaser. I already missed the trade. So I'm waiting on what? I'm waiting on a retrace, right? So I'm going to draw on my chart and I'm going to see if I can get that exact trade. Let's see. That's 20. Was that 20? Can't read that. 22? Oh, 20. Okay. That's 20. All right. So I would be putting a region box like this, and then I'd bring it down to this area. And I'm not going to take a breakout trade because it's already broken out, right? So I really want this trade right down in this area right here. That's also mid-band. And I'm going to turn this one off, this one on, this one to touch +2 or even 3, because a lot of times they'll barely touch these or even miss them, and you might miss the trade. Okay, let's see if we can get it on touch +3. There you go. Came right down, not quite to it. Now, I wouldn't normally go 2 on that just yet. I'd probably have gone just 1, but let's see if it touches that line. I'll bet it does. Bet you it does. Speed it up a little bit and see. Yep, see it? See it right there? Now, if you weren't in some, could you actually add? Well, we probably wouldn't want to add too many, but let's just go ahead and add for the fun of it. See it right there? And then you got you another nice trade. Okay? Now, of course, you would put your stop, obviously. You know, because the whole idea is you want to protect your trade naturally. You know, that's why you want to make sure that you don't want to get faked in. Okay, and I showed you how to avoid being faked in by literally looking to the left to trade the right, to always be watching the a priori swings, which, you know, when I had our programmer design those, you know, they're what we call MTF type of an indicator, which means it's multiple tick frame. Okay, so when you go to like Lightning 3, to give an example, and you've got our template, well, you've got it already set. See, we've got it at 4 range and 15 strength. Okay, but you can change this to anything you want. If you can figure out a better trading methodology than we've already got, and you want to present it to us, I'm all for it. Because, you know, we've looked at this for many, many years now and have found that, you know, when you think about 15 swing strength, okay, if you think of 15 4-range bars straight up, that's 60 ticks, right? But there's no such thing as 15 bars straight up normally. So what do they normally do? Well, they kind of do this. You know, you have bars up, you have bars down, you've got bars up, you got bars down. But you'll notice, though, that they make these little numbers on the chart. Now, where would be, if this decided to go short, and I'm not saying it will, because it really went up all the way to the close, if I remember right. But do you see it already? Let me just kill this just real quick. See that swing it just designed right there? That number showed up somewhere around in here. But this is telling you that if it took this out, that more than likely we're no longer heading up. Because what would you have then? Well, you would have a high, you'd have a low, you'd have a lower high, and you'd probably take out the low. Okay, just like we showed earlier when oil was actually short instead, which was way back here. How did this one set up? You had a high, you had a low, you had a lower high, same low, so it still wasn't trend changed yet, right? But when it started taking that out, was it then? And look where it kissed exactly. Now, to me, I don't think they're going to be changing their algorithms anytime soon, because we're not a big enough thorn in the big traders' sides and everything. Okay? But their algorithms are tuned to see these trend lines. They're tuned to see these breakouts and pullbacks and kisses, you know, and we've just figured that all out over the years that we've traded this system. You know, we've been able to tell where the trade's going to set up. And then we've designed our indicators literally to emulate that. And they can't ever change price action. Price action is going to be caught no matter what. You know, if this was to start going sideways like crazy for 15 bars or something like that, well, guess what? We're going to get one of these numbers like this with that little dot in here somewhere. You know, if this was to decide to just go choppy sideways, it'll draw the dot right in through here. Okay? But the whole idea of lightning 3 to begin with is so that you can see the overall trend on your chart. Let me just draw it again. Now, to avoid being faked into a trade, would you say, and by the way, why did I call a long here this morning? Okay, because if you draw your lightning again from down here, you had a high, you had a low, you had a higher high. So at that time, that was support. We drew the line in the room in real time, and we boxed this trade in like so, and we nailed it. Okay, and the way we nailed that trade was looking to the left to trade the right and diagnosed our chart. And it keeps you from being faked out. Okay, if you trade on Sunday night, to give an example, you know, just like I showed earlier, you know, this is all you saw at the time. Okay, this is right at when the market was getting ready to open. But what direction would you have turned your trader on? You had a high, you had a low, you had a lower high, pardon me, a lower, you had a low, a high, higher low, same high. Okay, then you even had a low here, but all in all, this is still an uptrend. And our midband and everything else was screaming that it was. All right, and what did you get? You got a monster nice move. Okay, and with YM, it was exactly the same thing. We diagnosed it, but it was a little tougher because it was actually a little different color chart at the time. Let me get to it so you can see it. YM moves a lot in a day, doesn't it? But remember, we diagnosed this chart earlier also, and what people were saying, well, you had higher lows. You could draw a trend line under them. You did have lower highs. It could have broken to the downside. But I've also found that when they go from longs over here and then go really, really sideways like this, and you got these higher lows, chances are you're going to go long on it. And that's what we ended up doing. I don't know if any of this was real. They pretty much probably started right in through here, if I remember right. Okay, but that had a nice monster trade. And looking to the left to trade the right, when did this become where you were looking more at a short? Well, you got an a priori swing here and you got one here. So if you draw it on your chart and they broke it, they kissed it. See there? They broke it and they kissed it. And your background turns red. Absolutely. Yeah, don't underestimate the power of these backgrounds because they're pretty darn good. Okay. Let's go over to the side on crude real quick, and we're going to wrap. By the way, this was right at like 158. I'm going to play this out and see what it actually did the rest of the day, just so everybody can see what you can actually get on these charts if you just simply diagnose them correctly. Anybody see another trade? It already happened. It was 43. It ratcheted up above it. It pulled back and kissed it. Everybody see that? Would you take a chance on that trade right there? Probably not, but let's just do it. Let's just, for the fun of it, see if it goes. Oh, I'm at the end. I'm paused. I just did it to about 237. Okay? Now, in the future, does everybody see that with our software and everything, and plus the fact that we're going to teach you, And you're going to actually go to sleep at night, and you're going to even think, you know, what did Gary say about those lightning swings? How can I look to the left to trade the right? And it's like an epiphany just happens. It's like all of a sudden you see these trades in real time because you see where they thrust up and they pull back. They thrust up and they pull back. Okay? And so you're ready to take the trade. Now, even at this very time, if anybody wants to look at their chart, my guess would be that oil has not taken out 72.21. Anybody got a chart? Tell me if they have or haven't. I'm just curious. They have not, have they? That's what I thought. Okay. I kind of figured that, but I ran out of replay mode. I'm at the end of it, so it's paused. But somebody else is telling me that it's you basically had another pullback into a support area at a predictor, and it's sitting at 72.68. It hit a high of 72.68. Okay. All right. So you think you might be ready to trade this tomorrow, and then if we happen to draw on our charts and see a trade that actually sets up, that it may be actually something that you might want to do. And by the way, this was not the only trade that was called in the room today. Does anybody remember this one when we came down to was it 16 if I remember right, wasn't it? Anybody remember that? Let me see. I called a trade trying to see where it was. Yeah, right here. Everybody remember that in the room this morning? You know, it had been going down a little bit and it thrust up, it pulled back, and it thrust up and it pulled back. Where did it pull back to? Pull back right on top of that swing, and that's where I had my line drawn. And we nailed that trade this morning to the tick. I think even Charles was impressed with that one, by the way. And if you didn't just get it right at 16 where I called it, you could actually do it just like this. Just use your little region box over here and box it in, and boom, you got a trade. Okay? All right. I hope everybody enjoyed the webinar tonight. Tonight's webinar was about how to avoid being faked into a trade. And the best way to avoid being faked into a trade is to see what direction you're really heading at the time. Because if you'll do that, you'll make sure that you don't go against that trend, and it'll keep you from getting faked in a lot. But when you do have like a downtrend, to give an example, you know, where was this a priori swing right here? And it broke it, didn't it? And it made another one because it went sideways quite a bit. But look at this, when it broke that swing, dropped like a stone. Perfect retrace trade, perfect retrace trade. Didn't take out the low. I wouldn't take that one right there usually. If I do, I scalp it. Because for it to really work, you want it to do the mid band and take out the low. Then come back and do a mid band and take out the low. Okay? Otherwise, guess what? You're heading back the other direction. All right. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll do this for real tomorrow. Thanks, everyone, for coming. No questions that didn't get answered, I hope. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks. JP, on your question, they're not a VWAP. Some people do use a VWAP. You know, we've just used this particular mid band, and like I say, it's like a magnet. It just pulls that trade right back into that money band. All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Good night.